everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfect Beer Talks webinar done by Pubinno. I'm Enki, the Senior Marketing Specialist, and I'll be your host today. Today's guest is somebody who I feel very privileged to be interviewing, and I'm delighted to welcome Will Sarni, a renowned leader in the field of water strategy and innovation, who has made and continues to make significant contributions to addressing water scarcity, quality, and equitable access to water. As the founder and CEO of Water Foundry and Water Foundry Ventures, Will has dedicated his career to advising multinational technology companies, investors, as well as different organizations on their water strategy implementation. Prior to his current roles, Will was a managing director at Deloitte Consulting, where he established and led the water strategy practice. Will's expertise and thought leadership have gained international recognition. He has been ranked as one of the World's Magazine's Worthy 100 in 2022 and acknowledged as a key player pressuring businesses to prioritize water. His insights have also been featuring among the top 15 interviews in Smart Water magazine in 2019. Authoring numerous publications, Will has contributed greatly to the field of water strategy and innovation. Beyond his advisory and entrepreneurial pursuits, Will actively engages in various organizations and initiatives. He's a co-founder of Wet Data and co-hosts the podcast The Stream with Will and Tom. Today's topic is the implementation of technology to drive sustainable water practices in businesses, and I'm excited to hear Will's insights. So Will, once again, welcome.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation about a topic that's important to me and clearly important to you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for accepting to being a guest at Pubinno's Perfect Beer Talks webinar. So my first question for you will actually be to talk a little bit about your background, even though I didn't mention a few things of what you have seen so far. And also, how did you start? How did you get involved into the field of water management and sustainability to begin with?
Sure. So my background, the degrees are in earth environmental sciences. My technical training, if you will, is as a hydrogeologist, so groundwater. And I started my career doing water supply projects, large cleanup projects, remediation projects, and litigation work. So consulting, testifying expert. And then couple of decades ago, I started my own environmental consulting firm with a couple other partners, and was introduced to this thing called sustainability. And it was new to me. And the more I learned, the more I got hooked on it and realized, at least for me, and I believe very strongly, that was where we were headed. And that sustainability was really the only path forward, and re-engineered the firm into a sustainability strategy consulting firm, and just took off. But I'd say I got hooked on water in high school. Essentially, I grew up in New York, and it sounds kind of corny, but I spent a lot of time at the beach and was very interested in oceans, and I thought I was going to be an oceanographer. But I got a job with a groundwater consulting firm, and I got hooked on freshwater instead. So yeah, it did sort of a little bit of a journey along the way.
But you always wanted to do something related to water, so that sounds great. Actually, in one way or another, you did what you wanted to do in high school as well.
It was always just something I was fascinated by, and I found that at the early part of my career, and still to this day, I learn something new, really every day, from the people I know, the people I meet, and that makes life interesting, rewarding.
Well, you kind of answered my second question, but I'll still
go for it.
For you would be, what motivates you every day to keep working on something that we're facing so many global challenges, and of course the environment is not at the best state that it could have been. So what keeps you motivated to continue your work in the field of water management and sustainability?
Yeah, what gets me going in the morning? A belief that we can do better, that the status quo is not adapting to the reality of the impacts of climate change, water scarcity, poor quality, lack of access. And, you know, a good friend of mine, Alexis Morgan from WWF, at UN Water Week, you know, he talked a lot about, you know, the belief that we can do better. So that's what propels me going forward. And that, you know, we really do have the solutions. You know, we have the technology solutions, we have innovative public policies and business models and so on. And yeah, if we can just sort of rally together and do better, then yeah, then people will have access to safe drinking water, things like that. So that gets me going.
That sounds great. So my other question for you is, can you mention a particularly rewarding or memorable moment in your career where you felt like your work has, you know, you're doing something significant, you made a significant difference in the conservation, in the water conservation or sustainability field?
You know, I would say the most rewarding thing that happens, and it you know, I wouldn't say it happens all the time, but when it does, it just, you know, warms my heart, so to speak, is when someone comes out to me and says, I saw you present at a conference and I got hooked on water, and I went off and started a new company, or, you know, I decided to go back to school, whatever it may be. And, you know, again, it happens, I would say, increasingly, where I get that feedback. And you know, last year I was at a conference, a water conference, and you know, I was just checking emails of something at a high top table, and someone came up to me, Nigel Sharp came up to me. He said, I'm not sure that you'll remember me, but I was at a presentation you did at Stockholm World Water Week in 2019. I heard what you had to say, and I went off and started a PFAS remediation company by the name of Aquaga. And it was, wow, that's great. You know, it's like, that's a good thing. So, you know, when I get that, and when I get, you know, feedback from students that, you know, I met along the way, yeah, that makes it all worthwhile. So, yeah.
That sounds yeah. The fact that you don't choose a particular moment or like something you want, but the motivation you give people every day really is inspiring to me as well.
It's a good thing.
Sounds great. So to a more serious question, a bit more dark question. In your opinion, what are the most pressing water-related issues or threats that businesses face today?
Oh, so from a business perspective, it's a few things. It's, you know, business continuity, the ability to run your business in the face of increasing demand and scarcity of water. The ability to grow. So, yeah, you know, if you're a company that wants to grow globally, you know, you're gonna look at parts of the world that are facing scarcity and poor water quality, and, you know, poor infrastructure and so on. So for me, that's it. And there's also the brand piece of the puzzle here, in that, you know, people have a perception about how companies are managing water, managing their water, and it, you know, can either be very positive or negative. So yeah, those are the issues. You know, we tend to focus on, you know, do you have enough liters of water to run your business? But you know, brand value, reputational risk, you know, regulatory risk, those are very significant, very real. And there are a number of examples where companies have had challenges with respect to that.
Yeah. So my other question for you, so there are some companies and especially startups nowadays who are focusing a lot on the sustainability efforts that they're making, but there are also some companies that don't really think it's important for them to implement sustainability strategies in their business model. So this question is directly to them. So what is the value, what would you say to these people, and what is the value water stewardship can create for these businesses? Like, and also
Yeah.
implement it in their business model, but also in their company culture, because I think it's very important to also implement, the sustainability mindset in the company culture as well.
Sure. When I started out in the world of sustainability, it was pretty clear that I had to use language that they understood.
Mhm.
And it was, the business case was, oh, it's the right thing to do. It was really around, well, it's the right business thing to do. And what does that mean? So, thinking about sustainability and implementing a strategy has the ability for a company to reduce their risk associated with resources, water and energy, reduce their operating costs. So, what company would not want to reduce their overhead essentially and be more efficient with energy, be more efficient with water, a reduction in carbon emissions. And then also, the brand value piece of the puzzle. I think it's pretty clear that, there are a number of companies that are leading on sustainability and, they are embraced by a segment of consumers and customers. And you brought up an issue that I think is under discussed and undervalued, essentially the workforce. So it's, what I found over the years is that having a sustainability strategy that's genuine, grounded in, performance, gives a company the ability to attract talent and retain talent. And that has real monetary value in the marketplace, a competitive advantage. So when if I was speaking to a company that didn't know how to spell sustainability, I would frame it that way and get them to think about it in very specific business terms, and include what you brought up around the workforce and talent.
Okay, thank you very much. So my other question for you is, in the past, it was hard to actually have a full understanding of the impact that was being done on the planet due to the lack of information and mostly data. The lack of data was actually what we think was the missing puzzle in understanding the full impact that we were doing. And at Pubinno, for example, we saw that an unbelievable amount of water was lost due to the waste created by inefficient processes that could easily be digitized. And we decided to do something about it. And that's how we ended up working with the top 3 breweries in the world. And now we're trying to add value to the planet, their customers, and also their businesses. I also know that Water Foundry provides water data analytics and visualization tools for people in order to close the gap a bit more. Given the increasing availability of data in technology, how do you see the role of water data analytics, such as the ones provided by Water Foundry, to enable a better understanding of supply-demand scenarios and interventions to address the water issues?
Data is critical, and not just collecting data, but turning it into actionable information. And that's what you do, and that's what we do in terms of working with primarily companies, but also the public sector a bit, on understanding how to collect data on a real-time basis and turn that into actionable information for a business, for a customer, consumer, and we're seeing the digital transformation of the water sector right now, just like we've seen that happen to other sectors that we now take for granted, in terms of digital technologies in healthcare and education and mobility, entertainment. We completely take that for granted. But there was a time when digital was new. So we're seeing that in the water sector now, and both utilities, public agencies, and the private sector are really beginning to understand how critical it is in managing, perhaps the most valuable resource that we have, which is water. So yeah, I mean, from a business perspective, you were smart to focus on that because there's a dire need for it, and yeah, so critical. We're just beginning.
Yeah, so just like you said, it's not just having the data, but actually making meaning out of that data
Right.
and then taking instant actions to, fix the problem. So my other question for you is, what are some emerging trends from your perspective or advances in the field of water management that you find particularly exciting or promising?
um, for me, a few things. Decentralization. So, right now we have centralized water and wastewater treatment plants, and we're seeing more and more technologies show up that are decentralized or extreme decentralized. And that includes gray water recycling technologies in the home and commercial buildings. It includes things like air moisture capture, so the ability to collect air moisture for drinking water off grid, community scale, water treatment systems that use renewable energy. To me, that's really, really interesting. This move from, centralized to localized and then really extreme decentralization. And we have the technology to do that. It's a big part of it is, education, awareness, changing public policy, and so on. And then there are things, I'm a big fan of using satellite data, remote sensing data to give stakeholders real-time water quality, water quantity monitoring, things like that.
Yeah, that sounds great. So my other question for you is, one of the industries that has had the biggest impact on climate change is the food and beverage industry. Actually, the industry that Pubinno is part of as well. In the last few years, this industry has been putting more effort into coming up with more sustainable solutions. There is still a long way to go. In your opinion, which sectors do you identify as having the greatest investment potential in terms of sustainability and water conservation?
Yeah, you bring up a really important point. I mean, consumer-facing industries, in particular food and beverage companies, were really the very early organizations, customers that sort of got sustainability and got the value of water and water stewardship and the need to build a strategy and execute on that strategy. So, yeah, I would say, the usual suspects in the food and beverage sector have a key role to play in terms of, building a water sewage strategy and investing in technology and working with entrepreneurs and so on. And, other sectors I think are pretty interesting also, the information communication technology sector. So, some of the big data companies are really in an interesting position in that they have their own water management challenges and opportunities, but they can actually use their technology to solve water-related challenges, and that gets back to digital. So, how does a ICT company take their digital products and bring them to market to work with other industry sectors? So, I'd say those are the two that I think are the most interesting right now. The food and beverage sector continues to innovate quite a bit with respect to water stewardship and make investments and work with entrepreneurs, and the digital tech world is delivering technology solutions across a range of sectors.
So can you discuss the broader impact you hope to achieve through your venture capital activities in a long-term vision for your investments in the water and sustainability sector?
Sure. So we are focused on, through Water Foundry Ventures, delivering technology solutions that address water scarcity, water quality, and equitable access. Also at the intersection of agriculture, energy, and climate change. So, water issues that are, let's say standalone, although nothing's really standalone, but also water is a cross-cutting issue. So again, water and agriculture, how do we increase crop productivity through precision ag? Energy, obviously, intersection of water with renewables primarily, or hydropower. And then also, how do we build a water secure and resilient infrastructure in the face of climate change? And, if you think about the technology categories that leads to, it's, with respect to water scarcity, for example, it's investing in technologies that reduce demand in the home. So water conservation, real-time water quality and quantity monitoring, water reuse in the home, water reuse in communities. And then, we've got a particular focus on the industrial sector because of, the relationships we have in the footprint. So really thinking about, well, what do industrial clients need across their entire value chain, not just in operations, but in their ag supply chain in particular.
That sounds great. My last question for you, and a bit of cheesy one, actually.
I'll go for it.
Looking back on your journey, what advice would you give to your younger self or to aspiring professionals who are passionate about sustainability and also water management?
Great question. I would say stay curious. If you want to get into the sector, talk to as many people as you can, and do your own research and learn as much as you can on a daily basis. And then also, it's not a linear process. I mean, I have a lot of conversations with people that are, in school, and it's, should I get another degree? Should I get an engineering degree, or whatever it may be? I would say think creatively. So if you want to get into the sector, go get a business degree, go get a law degree, and leverage that into the water sector, water stewardship sector. And also, I'm always intrigued by outsiders coming into the sector. So, I would tell people, don't worry about not having experience in the water sector. The fact that you have an outside view is invaluable in the scheme of things.
That sounds great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And
My pleasure.
Your insights with us. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity, and love what you're doing, and just keep at it.
Thank you. We will, for sure.
Great.
Have a nice day then.
Yeah.